The rip in the stars tore the night apart, leaving behind a fissure of light that shimmered like a wound in the fabric of reality itself. Across Coruscant skyline, the city planet's countless towers and spires shimmered under the golden rays of its sun, reflecting off the plasma of transit tubes and skycars. Yet among this familiar bustle, there was an unfamiliar anomaly, a streak of energy, impossible in every known physics manual, cascading downward toward the Senate District. The Jedi's precognitive sensors shuddered as they picked up a presence beyond the Force, a power too vast and foreign to comprehend fully. Superman's first steps on the polished streets of Coruscant were disorienting. The air smelled of ozone, exhaust, and the faint tang of synthetic fuel. The yellow light above him wasn't the sun of his homeworld, and his chest ached subtly as the less potent stellar radiation bathed him. Standing next to him, Wonder Woman's armor gleamed, yet her eyes scanned the crowds with the sharp instincts of a warrior who had fought gods and mortals alike. They were strangers here, exiled from their own reality by a rupture in time and space that no one, least of all Barry Allen, had fully anticipated. Hovering over the city in the shadows, Jedi Masters Luminara Unduli and Kit Fisto debated the anomaly, their green and blue lightsabers casting soft glows on their robes as they levitated silently. Their energy signatures are unlike anything I have felt before, Luminara whispered. It is potent. And it is alien. Kit Fisto's webbed fingers flexed. Not the dark side, nor the light as we know it. Something else entirely. We should investigate carefully. The first interaction was cautious. Superman raised a hand in greeting, a gesture meant to communicate peace, but the clone troopers, forming a perimeter around them, tensed their blasters. Wonder Woman mirrored his stance, her sword lowered but ready. The tension in the Senate District air was palpable, a mixture of awe, confusion, and dread. The Jedi stepped forward, speaking in calm, measured tones. We are guardians of peace. State your purpose here. Superman's voice, deep and resonant, cut through the city's ambient hum. We mean no harm. We were pulled from our world by forces beyond our control. We are seeking answers. The conversation was interrupted by a distant roar, the unmistakable whirring of machinery that was too rapid for anything native to this world. Across the Coruscant skyline, a separatist spy drone streaked into view. Cyborg, arriving separately through the rift, immediately assessed the situation. His optics flared, scanning for threats, while a holographic map of Coruscant's grid projected from his wrist. Multiple hostiles. Weapons-grade energy signatures detected. Likely droid units. The Jedi turned toward the threat instinctively. Kit Fisto ignited his lightsaber, fluid motion and calm authority, combining with centuries of training. These outsiders, he murmured to Luminara, they may be allies, or they may be a danger we cannot yet foresee. Superman leapt into action, his flight carrying him above the rooftops in seconds, intercepting the drone. Heat vision flared, cutting cleanly through the mechanical intruder, showering sparks across the Coruscant skyline. Civilians screamed, but Superman's aim and restraint kept casualties to a minimum. Wonder Woman landed beside the Jedi, her sword angled to deflect stray debris while calming onlookers. Your power, it is unlike anything we have seen, Luminara said, her voice a mixture of awe and apprehension. Superman nodded. We are still learning the rules of your galaxy. We do not understand the Force fully, but we feel it in the air, in your beings. A shuttle descended rapidly from the Senate spire above, Republic markings glinting in the mid-morning sun. Clone troopers disembarked, their movements precise and disciplined. Commander Bly stepped forward, his blaster trained cautiously. Who are you, and why are you here? His tone demanded compliance, but it lacked malice, honed by years of wartime protocol. Batman, having arrived moments earlier by separate rift, analyzed the situation from a shadowed perch atop a nearby building. His cape fluttered as he observed the interplay of alien powers and Jedi philosophy. He noted vulnerabilities in trooper formations, the separation between their infantry and air support, and potential communication weaknesses. A puzzle to solve, not a battlefield to conquer. Meanwhile, Barry Allen, the Flash, flickered into existence on the rooftops across the city, his temporal instability causing brief afterimages and distorted motion. Each pulse of speed threatened to unravel nearby force-sensitive individuals' concentration. I'm trying to stabilize, he muttered to himself, feeling the subtle tug of the force against his speed-force connection. If he overreached, entire sectors of the city could experience sudden temporal distortions, an unintended catastrophe. Cyborg and Green Lantern, meanwhile, worked quickly to establish secure perimeter zones, the latter using his ring to construct barriers over critical streets. Green Lantern's constructs were unfamiliar to the Jedi and clones, glowing with a strange green energy that resonated differently in the presence of midi-chlorians. "We need to understand their weapons and limits," Batman muttered under his breath, jotting mental notes for contingencies. The first signs of misunderstanding were immediate. Senate officials arrived, alarmed at the potential security breach. Rumors spread quickly: alien invaders, dark side experimentation, technological gods. Yet the League's restraint and cooperation with the Jedi prevented immediate chaos. Wonder Woman, sensing rising tension, addressed the assembly with calm authority. "We did not come to conquer or destroy. We were ripped from our world. Our goal is to survive and to help if we can." Still, the galaxy's inherent fear of outsiders lingered. Even with the Jedi advocating patience and observation, Republic strategists began debating protocol. Could these beings, these godlike heroes, be used as weapons to end the Clone Wars? Could they be trusted to intervene ethically? And who would control them if they chose sides? The philosophical and tactical implications rippled through the halls of the Senate as discussions heated into arguments of unprecedented magnitude. As the sun climbed over Coruscant, the League assembled. Superman and Wonder Woman with Jedi, Batman observing from shadows, Flash stabilizing erratic time streams, Green Lantern and Cyborg coordinating with clones, and Aquaman arriving by shuttle from a neighboring water planet. The city was at a fragile standstill, the air humming with tension and possibility. Every decision, every interaction carried weight, the first dominoes in a conflict that could reshape the galaxy. Finally, Superman turned to the Jedi. "We must learn your ways, understand your factions, and adapt. We do not wish to dominate, but we will defend ourselves. Can you help us?" Luminara nodded, though her eyes betrayed a mixture of hope and fear. "We will guide you. But remember, outsiders with such power often tip scales unintentionally. Be vigilant. The Force flows through all things, and your arrival may alter its course forever." The first step had been taken. The Justice League was here, in a galaxy locked in the chaos of war, surrounded by Jedi, clones, and political intrigue. Their presence would not be ignored. Forces beyond their understanding, enemies yet unseen, and moral dilemmas unimaginable in their home universe awaited them. And in that crucible, the League would prove or falter in ways no one could predict. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The outer rim of the galaxy was a realm of shadowed stars and forgotten worlds, a place where law bent to the will of the strongest, and survival required a mix of cunning, firepower, and luck. Here, Batman had landed after the dimensional rift deposited him on a rocky, windswept world known to locals as Rylotha's Outer Moons. The planet's twin suns burned low over the horizon, casting long, jagged shadows across the jagged cliffs and sand-swept canyons. Already, the air vibrated with the hum of droid patrols, remnants of separatist scouting parties, still active despite territorial chaos. Batman's first instinct was analysis. Every rock, every fissure, every line of sight could conceal a potential ambush. With the League separated, he could not rely on Superman's overwhelming strength, Wonder Woman's battlefield prowess, or Flash's speed. Here, stealth was his weapon, and intellect his armor. Using a combination of gliding maneuvers, sonar analysis from his utility belt, and drones adapted to the local environment, he moved silently across the terrain. His objective, locate survivors, allies, and any intelligence on Separatist activity that might affect the wider Clone Wars. Meanwhile, Cyborg and Green Lantern were arriving in the Mid-Rim, guided by fragmented hyperspace coordinates. The Separatists had been experimenting with a superweapon, a massive orbital railgun designed to strike entire planetary systems with precision strikes. Cyborg interfaced with local data networks, scanning for weaknesses in its energy conduits, while Green Lantern constructed energy scaffolds and sensor probes, seeking to understand the weapon's firing parameters. Both worked with the precision of engineers and warriors alike, but the unfamiliar physics of hyperspace and local energy readings forced constant recalibration. Back on Coruscant, tensions continued to rise. Senate corridors buzzed with speculation, whispers, and veiled threats. Jedi Masters debated the wisdom of allowing such powerful beings to roam free. They do not yet understand the nuances of the Force, nor the fragility of our galaxy, Kit Fisto warned. Their strength is unmatched, but unchecked power can be a curse. Luminara Unduli nodded. We must guide, but also monitor. One wrong move, and entire sectors could collapse into chaos. Superman and Wonder Woman were not idle observers. They patrolled the city's skies, observing the movements of both Separatist spies and clone battalions, subtly intervening where civilians were endangered. Superman's flight drew attention from both Jedi and Republic military leaders, prompting hurried discussions in the Senate. Could this alien intervention end the war prematurely, or would it provoke retaliation from Sith manipulators? The ethical and tactical dilemma weighed heavily on all parties involved. Flash, meanwhile, found himself in the midst of temporal turbulence. One moment he was running across the rooftops of Coruscant, the next he emerged over Geonosis, the site of ongoing Separatist operations. Each jump sent ripples through the fabric of the Force, causing Jedi precognition to flicker unpredictably. I have to stabilize the jumps, he muttered, sweat beading on his brow. The risk was enormous, one miscalculation, and he could accidentally alter the course of battles, erase key figures from history, or create paradoxes that the galaxy could never recover from. Aquaman, newly arrived in the Mid-Rim, found himself on a planet mostly covered by shallow oceans and jagged reefs. Here, he discovered local populations living in precarious harmony with Separatist droid patrols. Using his telepathy with aquatic life, he scouted the movements of enemy forces, coordinating covert strikes to protect innocents while minimizing collateral damage. His connection to water and marine creatures gave him an advantage the locals had never seen, and the League's alien power became a source of myth and rumor in real time. Back on Rylotha's moons, Batman encountered a clan of mercenaries, humans, Twi'leks, and Rhodians, operating with morally ambiguous motives. They initially mistook him for a Separatist agent, but his strategic use of stealth, combat efficiency, and non-lethal takedowns earned their cautious respect. You fight like you're not from around here, one Rodian muttered. Batman's cold gaze assessed them. I'm here for information, not war. But I will act against anyone threatening innocence. This delicate dance of trust and manipulation highlighted the League's central challenge: how to operate as strangers with immense power in a universe that feared them. Cyborg scans revealed that the Separatist superweapon's primary energy source was a rare crystal array, destabilized by high-frequency pulses. Green Lantern's ring could manipulate constructs at atomic levels, but the local physics meant he had to recalibrate continuously. We can neutralize it, but only if we synchronize precisely, Cyborg said, interfacing with a nearby droid control network. One misstep, and it fires automatically. We're talking planetary devastation. On Coruscant, political intrigue intertwined with the League's presence. Senators debated whether to officially sanction these new champions or consider them rogue threats. Some saw immediate strategic value, suggesting deployment on critical fronts against Separatist forces. Others feared the consequences of introducing beings who could override Jedi authority and clone protocols alike. The council chambers became a microcosm of the galaxy's larger struggle: fear, pragmatism, morality, and ambition clashing in endless debate. Simultaneously, whispers of the League's arrival reached Count Dooku. The Sith Lord's pale features twisted into a faint smile. Alien beings of immense power arriving in the Clone Wars? An irresistible opportunity. Let them come, he murmured to his acolytes. Their strength is considerable, but their hearts are predictable. We shall see if their morality binds them or shatters them. Already, Dooku began orchestrating probes and subtle manipulations, testing the League's willingness to intervene in conflicts far beyond their understanding. As the day wore on, the Justice League began to understand the galaxy's layered complexity. Jedi philosophy emphasized restraint and the balance of the Force, but in the midst of war, even Masters struggled to act without causing unintended consequences. The Clone Wars were not battles of clear right or wrong. They were clashes of necessity, strategy, and survival. For beings used to defining justice in stark terms, this ambiguity posed a challenge. Moral decisions were not theoretical. They had immediate, lethal consequences. Superman, observing the first battle between clone forces and separatist droids, felt a pang of frustration. He could intervene and end the conflict within seconds, but doing so could alter the larger war, potentially creating far-reaching repercussions. Wonder Woman, ever pragmatic, reminded him, "We must respect the context. Strength is not the only measure of effectiveness. Sometimes guidance, subtlety, and timing shape outcomes more than raw power." Across multiple systems, Flash finally managed to stabilize his Speed-Force connection, but only partially. His jumps still caused minor temporal distortions, leaving anomalies for Jedi to investigate, but they were contained enough to allow coordinated action. Green Lantern and Cyborg's work on the superweapon reached a critical phase. They had to neutralize its energy array without triggering catastrophic failsafes. Batman relayed intelligence to the team through secure channels, orchestrating precise, surgical interventions that minimize civilian and military casualties. The Outer Rim, the Mid-Rim, and Coruscant itself had become a stage for unprecedented collaboration and tension. The League's presence was no longer an anomaly. It was a catalyst. Clones, Jedi, and even local mercenaries adapted to the reality of godlike outsiders, wary of both the power and the philosophy they represented. Each member of the Justice League had to operate at peak competence while learning the rules of a galaxy that had never known beings like them. By nightfall, the scattered League members began to converge toward Coruscant, their communications synchronized. Batman coordinated safe corridors, Flash minimized temporal disturbances, and Green Lantern projected surveillance to identify potential threats. Superman and Wonder Woman patrolled the skies above the Senate District, visible to all and yet restrained by ethical caution. Aquaman had secured the Mid-Rim oceanic world, preventing separatist exploitation and earning the tentative trust of local populations. Cyborg interfaced with networks across multiple planets, compiling intelligence for the first coordinated League action within the galaxy. The stage was set. The Justice League had arrived, the galaxy had taken notice, and the Clone Wars, the largest conflict in decades, was about to be disrupted in ways neither Jedi, Sith, Republic, nor Separatists could have predicted. In the shadows, forces both noble and malevolent prepared to test these strangers, unaware that these newcomers' moral codes, strategic brilliance, and raw power might redefine the course of history itself. The first step of adaptation was complete. The next would demand intervention, confrontation, and choices that could either save or doom entire star systems. The first direct collision between the Justice League and the galaxy's established factions occurred on Geonosis, where Separatist forces were entrenched in a sprawling network of factories and droid assembly lines. Reports had reached both the Jedi Council and scattered Republic commanders of anomalous energy signatures. And now, from the skies above the dusty red plains, Superman and Wonder Woman descended, their presence alone casting an enormous shadow over the battlefield. Heat vision seared through the thick clouds of smoke, blasting droid columns before blaster fire could reach the Republic lines, while Wonder Woman's sword cleaved through droidekas with surgical precision, her motions a dance of practiced combat fluidity. Clone commanders on the ground were stunned. Captain Rex blinked rapidly, struggling to reconcile the superhuman figures towering over the battle with the reality of his own training and experience. "Are those Jedi?" he asked, watching Wonder Woman deflect heavy blaster fire without so much as a flinch. But their armor, her glowing lasso, and Superman's nearly invulnerable form told him otherwise. No, something else entirely. The clones' discipline remained intact, but they deferred subtly to the League's display of overwhelming power, forming protective formations rather than attempting frontal assaults. Count Dooku observed the scene from a hidden perch atop one of Geonosis' towers, his amber eyes narrowing as he analyzed the newcomers. The Force is unfamiliar to them, yet their strength rivals even the mightiest of Jedi. Perhaps the trick is not to confront them openly, but to test their philosophy, to see if their sense of justice can be manipulated. He extended a gloved hand, subtly manipulating the nearest droid command protocols. Within moments, droidekas began subtly shifting formations, drawing the League toward carefully calculated ambush points. Meanwhile, Flash appeared in a sudden burst of motion, phasing between temporal points to anticipate droid attacks, his figure a blur across the battlefield. Yet his instability was noticeable. Each micro-jump caused minor dislocations in the local force currents, making Jedi precognition unreliable and creating brief moments of chaos. Kit Fisto struggled to adjust mid-combat, his lightsaber deflecting laser fire that seemed to flicker in ways his training could not predict. Luminara Unduli recognized the problem instantly. "He is powerful but unstable," she shouted. "We must coordinate with him, or his abilities may inadvertently harm both allies and innocents." Cyborg and Green Lantern arrived near a critical junction of the Separatist manufacturing lines, discovering the droid factories were powered by a modified energy conduit capable of mass-producing advanced combat droids at alarming rates. Green Lantern's constructs formed massive containment barriers, isolating the production hubs, while Cyborg hacked into the mainframe, planting viruses to sabotage output without triggering failsafes. The team's combined technological prowess began to turn the tide, yet Dooku's subtle manipulations continued, making every success precarious. Aquaman, meanwhile, had been diverted via hyperspace anomaly to an oceanic region on a nearby moon of Geonosis, where Separatist forces attempted to weaponize native aquatic lifeforms for amphibious assaults. His telepathy allowed him to communicate with the creatures, redirecting them harmlessly and ensuring civilian populations were protected. His control over the environment created a second front that distracted the Separatist forces, forcing them to split attention between land and sea. Another tactical advantage the League leveraged expertly. Superman hovered over the battlefield, scanning for potential threats to both civilians and Republic forces. "We can't just obliterate everything," he murmured to Wonder Woman, who stood at his side on a plateau of rock. "Even with our power, there are consequences." Her gaze swept the chaos below, observing droid formations, clone battalions, and the unexpected interference of force-sensitive individuals. "Then we act with precision," she said, voice firm. "Strength without purpose is just destruction." It was at this precise moment that Dooku enacted his trap. A squad of elite Magna Guards, enhanced by experimental energy modulation, ambushed the League's rear. Superman and Wonder Woman engaged immediately, their speed and power sufficient to hold the line, but the droids' unpredictable energy fields began interfering with Superman's heat vision and flight stability. Wonder Woman parried strikes from two opposing guards simultaneously, their force-fielded weapons sparking against her divine resilience. Flash intervened, moving so quickly that the Magna Guards were struck by rapid, disorienting blows in near-simultaneous succession, though each strike created subtle temporal ripples that sent nearby clones and Jedi stumbling. Batman's shadow fell across the battlefield in the form of a coordinated sabotage of Separatist supply lines. Explosives and EMP devices, he planted destabilized droid reinforcements, buying time for Superman and Wonder Woman to hold strategic points. The clones marveled at the precise efficiency of a lone figure dismantling complex defenses while remaining invisible, a reminder that power came in many forms, not all measured by raw strength. Yet moral questions arose almost immediately. The League's presence alone was shaping the course of battle in ways the Republic could not fully comprehend. Jedi Masters debated whether intervention by beings of such power was ethical. Luminara Unduli's voice rang out across comms. We must ensure minimal casualties. Their abilities can end wars, but at what cost? Superman acknowledged this silently, restraining bursts of heat vision to precise strikes and minimizing structural damage, while Wonder Woman ensured that civilian workers caught in factory complexes were shielded and evacuated. Dooku, growing frustrated at the League's coordinated resistance, decided on escalation. He invoked force persuasion over a group of clone battalions, attempting to manipulate them into misalignment with their orders. However, Batman's prior reconnaissance had identified these susceptibilities, and Cyborg's interface systems created rapid countermeasures, alerting clone commanders before any real disruption could occur. Even the Sith's manipulations, clever and subtle as they were, could not overcome the League's combined intellect, foresight, and adaptability. At the battlefield center, Green Lantern's energy constructs began reshaping key choke points, isolating Separatist forces and preventing their retreat or reinforcement. Flash's unstable jumps, carefully moderated by Batman and Cyborg's remote guidance, created controlled chaos, disorienting enemy formations without causing permanent temporal damage. Aquaman's influence over aquatic environments neutralized Separatist plans to use amphibious assaults, turning the tide in multiple theaters simultaneously. By the time night fell over Geonosis, the battlefield lay scattered with disabled droids, collapsed energy pylons, and battered Separatist troops. Jedi, clones, and League members alike took stock of their successes and their limitations. Even in victory, the price of intervention was apparent. Temporal anomalies, structural damage, and the constant risk of overreach reminded every member of the League that their power, while godlike, was not absolute. Count Dooku observed from his perch, his amber eyes glittering with the calculation of a predator whose prey had proven more formidable than expected. They are impressive, he whispered, voice cold and measured. Yet they do not understand the subtleties of war here. I will bend their morality. I will test their unity. And then, perhaps, I will see which path they choose, one of cooperation or one of chaos. In the aftermath, the League convened a field council. Superman spoke first, addressing the Scatter team. We are powerful, yes, but this galaxy is complicated. Force-sensitive beings, politics, civilians, war, we cannot simply impose our solution. We need to understand, adapt, and act strategically. Wonder Woman nodded. Every action has consequences here that are unlike anything we've faced. We must balance intervention with wisdom. The seeds of both alliance and conflict were sown. Jedi respect mingled with cautious suspicion. Republic officials saw potential advantages, yet feared uncontrollable outcomes. Separatist forces, humbled but not defeated, recalculated their strategies. And Dooku plotted in the shadows, measuring the League's strengths, weaknesses, and moral inclinations. The Justice League had arrived, and their first battle had demonstrated their unmatched prowess. But in a galaxy defined by shades of gray, sheer power would not guarantee victory. The temporal instability caused by Barry Allen, the Flash, had become impossible to ignore. Each micro-jump he executed through hyperspace caused subtle fractures in local time streams, displacing clones, droids, and civilians across multiple planetary locations. On one fringe world near the Mid-Rim, a small Separatist reconnaissance base blinked out of existence for several seconds, only to reappear scattered across the desert plain in slightly altered positions. Jedi Masters monitoring the Force began sensing faint echoes of dislocation, a reverberation that unsettled even the most experienced precogs. Luminara Unduli raised her hands, her voice trembling slightly. This is not just war, it is temporal disruption. If unchecked, it could cascade through the Clone Wars itself. Flash struggled to maintain control, sweat beading across his brow as he stabilized the Speed Force in an alien galaxy. I didn't anticipate the Force interfering with my jumps, he muttered to himself. Every attempt to run was met with resistance, the very fabric of space bending unpredictably under his superluminal motion. Even Superman, hovering nearby, felt a subtle tug as if the force itself were pushing against Barry's velocity. "Focus," Superman said, voice calm but firm. "We have to stabilize, or we risk undoing entire battles before they even begin." Meanwhile, Batman had established a temporary operations center in the rocky canyons of Rylotha's moons. Holographic maps of the Clone Wars theaters flickered in the dim light as he analyzed Separatist troop movements and Republic patrol patterns. Clone commanders had begun sending data regarding the League's interventions, seeking guidance. Batman's mind, a razor-sharp analytical engine, considered every variable. Superman's limited solar energy, Flash's instability, Green Lantern's adaptation to local physics, and Wonder Woman's battlefield influence. Every member of the League was a potential force multiplier, but coordination in this galaxy's unique dynamics was critical. Cyborg and Green Lantern continued to work on neutralizing the Separatist superweapon, now aware that temporal anomalies from Flash's jumps could either hasten their mission or trigger catastrophic failure. Cyborg's cybernetic systems interfaced with local energy conduits, calculating precise countermeasures, while Green Lantern's ring constructs began to align in harmonic resonance with the altered physics of hyperspace near the mid-rim. "We can synchronize with his jumps," Cyborg said, "but we'll have a window of less than 30 seconds. Any deviation, and the weapon fires automatically." On Coruscant, the political ramifications were mounting. Senators, Jedi, and military officials debated the League's ethical boundaries. Some argued that their power could end the war in days, eliminating thousands of lives spent in prolonged conflict. Others warned of the consequences of introducing godlike beings into a delicate balance of factions. "We must consider them allies, yes, but we cannot fully control them," one senator argued. "Their morality is not ours. Their decisions could tip entire systems into chaos." Simultaneously, Count Dooku sensed the disruptions and smiled faintly. Alien powers, wielded by beings unaccustomed to the subtleties of the Force and galactic politics, created opportunities ripe for manipulation. He dispatched specialized droid units with experimental energy shields designed to test Superman's limits and probe for weaknesses in Wonder Woman's combat resilience. At the same time, he subtly began influencing clone detachments with the Force, sowing seeds of confusion to gauge the League's moral and tactical responses. The League convened remotely across hyperspace link channels, their holographic projections flickering under the strain of interdimensional communication. Superman's voice was steady. "We must intervene carefully. Flash, you will need to stabilize, but only engage when necessary. Green Lantern and Cyborg, focus on the superweapon. Timing is critical. Wonder Woman, monitor the Separatist assault patterns. Batman, coordinate intelligence and field strategy." Flash's first controlled intervention occurred when Separatist droids ambushed a Republic outpost near the mid-rim. He phasing at precise intervals, moving through space-time to disarm traps, reroute attacks, and save trapped civilians. The clones on the ground watched in awe as the young speedster operated across multiple vectors simultaneously, sometimes appearing to multiply, other times leaving faint afterimages that disoriented enemy sensors. The Jedi, observing from afar, noted with caution that his abilities, while incredibly effective, were destabilizing the Force subtly, a reminder that even heroes with pure intent could have unforeseen consequences in this galaxy. Cyborg, interfacing with Separatist systems, discovered that the superweapon's firing algorithm relied on a feedback loop susceptible to energy phase interference. Green Lantern quickly fashioned a series of constructs to absorb and redistribute the energy, but the calculations were delicate. One mistimed Flash jump could overload the array, resulting in planetary devastation. "We're threading a needle here," Cyborg said, voice calm but tense. "1 second off, one slight energy fluctuation, and we lose this window, and potentially lives." Meanwhile, Wonder Woman led a direct engagement with Separatist forces near the factories, her movements fluid and precise. Her lasso snared combat droids, flipping them into their own lines, while her sword cut through reinforced plating with divine efficiency. Jedi Masters observed and cautiously noted that her approach combined discipline with instinctive morality, a style alien to their more detached methods. Even among warriors trained to resist emotion-driven decisions, there was recognition. Wonder Woman's tactical morality gave her combat an unexpected elegance and unpredictability. Batman, ever vigilant, detected that Dooku had subtly manipulated clone units during these battles, creating small ethical dilemmas. Should a clone obey the ambiguous orders influenced by the Sith, or follow the League's direct intervention? His communications to the League highlighted these variables, allowing coordinated micro-decisions that minimized collateral damage and maintained operational integrity. Every step required precision. A wrong call could escalate tension, provoke Sith exploitation, or destabilize Republic strategy entirely. By the end of the day, the Justice League had achieved temporary stabilization. Flash's temporal jumps were synchronized enough to prevent further displacement of soldiers and civilians. The superweapon was neutralized, though only temporarily, and Separatist forces had been disrupted significantly without mass casualties. Jedi Masters and clone commanders began adjusting their own tactics to incorporate lessons from the League's interventions. However, the moral and strategic challenges were far from over. Superman and Wonder Woman discussed the implications quietly over Coruscant skyline. We're changing the course of battles, yes, but at what cost? Superman murmured. Wonder Woman nodded. We act with intent, but the galaxy is not ours to command. Every decision has ripples, and some we cannot even see yet. Dooku, observing from the shadows, silently noted the League's responses. Their competence was undeniable, but so too was their morality, and he intended to test both. They are powerful, he whispered, but principled. Let us see how long principle can survive the crucible of war. The first contact with major factions had ended without catastrophe, but the inciting events were clear. The Justice League's arrival had disrupted the Clone Wars fundamentally. Their powers, ethics, and tactics had created both opportunity and risk. How they navigated the galaxy, balanced intervention with restraint, and responded to Sith manipulation would determine the trajectory of countless worlds. The League's next challenge emerged not on a battlefield, but in the shadowed corridors of galactic politics. Following the partial stabilization of the Mid-Rim and Geonosis theaters, the Republic Council convened a special session to address the implications of alien superpowered beings operating within their jurisdiction. Hollow projections of Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Flash, Green Lantern, Cyborg, and Aquaman floated above the chamber's polished floors, their presence as much a symbol of awe as it was a source of tension. Senators whispered urgently among themselves, weighing the potential benefits of enlisting the League against the risks of provoking their unknown powers. On the other side of the equation, Dooku and his loyalists quietly monitored the proceedings from hidden vantage points. He had sent subtle operatives to manipulate perception within the Council, planting seeds of doubt. Could the Justice League be trusted? Might they eventually act in their own interest rather than the Republic's? Could one impulsive decision from these outsiders tip the fragile balance of power in favor of the Separatists? Dooku's patience was calculated. He knew the League's morality would eventually clash with the political machinations surrounding them. Meanwhile, Batman had infiltrated the underlayers of Coruscant to gather intelligence. Using a combination of stealth, surveillance drones, and analytic deduction, he discovered that certain sectors of the Republic bureaucracy had begun to consider leveraging the League's abilities as strategic assets rather than partners. Some senators, enthralled by the promise of victory with minimal casualties on their part, were already drafting preliminary frameworks to request direct combat deployment from these extraterrestrial heroes. Batman's keen mind immediately identified the risk. The League could become political tools, stripped of agency and thrust into conflicts dictated by ideology rather than morality. Superman and Wonder Woman, aware of these undercurrents, sought to establish clear boundaries. They met discreetly with Jedi representatives Luminara Unduli and Kit Fisto, articulating a philosophy. Intervention would be guided by principle, not political expediency. We are not weapons, Superman stated firmly. We act to protect innocence, to restore balance where we can. But we will not serve agendas built on manipulation or fear. Wonder Woman's voice reinforced the sentiment. Power without purpose is meaningless. We will intervene strategically, but only where morality allows, not where politics demands. Cyborg and Green Lantern, having neutralized the Separatist superweapon temporarily, were now tasked with monitoring droid movements and energy anomalies across multiple systems. Cyborg's interface with local networks provided real-time intelligence on Separatist production hubs, while Green Lantern's ring allowed instantaneous construction of observation posts and defensive perimeters in strategic locations. Together, their technological and construct-based surveillance gave the League a critical advantage: foresight without intrusion, intervention without overreach. The Flash, still grappling with minor temporal instability, became increasingly aware of the moral complexity inherent in these interventions. Each jump, while effective in neutralizing immediate threats, subtly influenced battles and outcomes far removed from his actions. On one planet, a Separatist strike was foiled not because the Republic had reinforced it, but because Barry's micro-jump caused a small timing discrepancy that inadvertently disrupted enemy coordination. Though he had saved lives, he recognized the moral dilemma. Was it right to intervene if the outcomes were accidental or beyond his comprehension? Aquaman, observing Separatist activity on oceanic planets, found himself similarly challenged. His telepathic communication with marine life allowed him to anticipate attacks and neutralize threats, yet he realized that over-reliance on his abilities could provoke fear and hostility among local populations unfamiliar with extraterrestrial powers. Each act of intervention had the potential to destabilize fragile ecological and social balances, reinforcing the League's growing awareness that raw power alone could not dictate justice in a galaxy so complex. The moral and strategic crossroads culminated when a high-ranking Republic official proposed an unprecedented measure, deploying the League directly into the Clone Wars front lines, embedding them with clone armies to influence key battles decisively. Superman listened silently, the weight of responsibility pressing against him. Wonder Woman's hand rested lightly on his arm, a subtle gesture of solidarity. "We must choose carefully," she said. To intervene without full understanding could be catastrophic. Batman, through secure communication channels, relayed intelligence indicating that Separatist forces had already detected patterns in the League's previous interventions. Dooku, in particular, had begun calculating contingencies based on the League's predictable moral frameworks. "The more we act," Batman transmitted, "the more Dooku and the Separatists anticipate. We must introduce unpredictability without compromising ethics." Cyborg and Green Lantern offered technical solutions, creating phased deployments that allowed partial League engagement while maintaining safe distance and minimizing disruption to larger campaigns. "We can neutralize critical threats," Cyborg said, "without directly imposing ourselves on every battlefield. That way, our presence is effective, but we maintain strategic ambiguity." This strategy was first tested when a Separatist commando raid targeted a remote Republic outpost. Superman and Wonder Woman descended in the thick of battle, their powers overwhelming but precise. Flash's temporal jumps allowed near-instant response to droid ambushes, while Batman directed clones into optimal defensive positions. Aquaman diverted native aquatic life to shield the outpost, and Green Lantern's energy constructs formed protective barriers around civilians. Cyborg disrupted Separatist communications, preventing reinforcements from arriving in time. The operation succeeded flawlessly, but it revealed an underlying tension. Every act of heroism highlighted the League's alien nature and raised questions about autonomy, authority, and influence. Clone commanders looked to Superman for tactical directives. Jedi Masters debated the ethical implications, and senators speculated on the broader consequences of using beings with near-limitless power. The League had demonstrated effectiveness, but in doing so, they had further entrenched the moral and political dilemmas surrounding their presence. Count Dooku observed these developments, his pale face framed by the shadowed corridors of his hidden command centers. "They follow principle," he mused, Yet their morality is a weakness I can exploit. Push too far and they hesitate. Hesitate too long and opportunity arises. Let us see which path they choose when the stakes are personal, not abstract. His strategy was simple yet insidious. Force the League into situations where moral certainty collided with tactical necessity, revealing cracks that could be exploited without direct confrontation. By the end of the week, the League had established a pattern: measured intervention, precise engagement, and constant moral assessment. Each member had adapted to the alien physics, force interference, and the ethical ambiguity of the Clone Wars, but the universe had already begun adapting to them. News of their exploits spread quickly, reaching distant systems and altering perception. Jedi, clones, separatists, and even ordinary citizens began to whisper of beings of extraordinary power, capable of influencing the very course of the war. The League's presence had shifted the balance, but whether toward justice or chaos remained an open question. The League's operations had begun to draw more than awe. They had drawn attention. In the Outer Rim, where the Separatist grip remained strongest, intelligence reports indicated that a rogue Sith acolyte had been dispatched to investigate the alien interlopers. Darth Maul, sensing the convergence of foreign energy signatures unlike anything in his experience, moved silently through the underworlds of Korriban and scattered war zones, anticipating the day when the League's heroes might intersect with the dark side. Unlike Dooku, who preferred manipulation from a distance, Maul sought confrontation, testing combatants personally to gauge their strength, resolve, and potential as allies or enemies. Superman's acute senses first detected unusual energy fluctuations on Rylotha's outer moons. Heat signatures far beyond normal Separatist weaponry pulsed rhythmically, and Superman realized that something, or someone, was stalking them deliberately. He convened a rapid strategy session with Wonder Woman, Batman, and Flash. "We're being hunted," he said, his voice calm but tense. Not by regular forces, not by droids, but by someone attuned to the Force, or something very similar. We need to proceed carefully. Wonder Woman's eyes narrowed. Then we must prepare to respond without provoking unnecessary chaos. Identify the threat before it escalates. Batman, ever the tactician, began cross-referencing previous encounters with anomalies in the Force that had coincided with the League's actions. Patterns indicate precision, he reported via secure comms. This is not random. Whoever is approaching knows our operational style and is adapting to it. They may try to force moral compromises. He recommended establishing fallback zones and decoys, using stealth and environmental manipulation to draw the unknown aggressor into controlled environments. Meanwhile, Flash's jumps became critical to reconnaissance. Carefully calibrated, they allowed the team to map energy pulses across multiple locations almost instantaneously. Yet each jump revealed subtle consequences. Clones temporarily misplaced, civilian traffic shifted unpredictably, and local Force-sensitive wildlife disturbed. Even minor alterations created ripple effects, reminding the League that their alien abilities, while potent, carried risks the galaxy had no framework to contain. On the ground, Wonder Woman led a small strike team to intercept suspicious Separatist movements on a desolate mid-rim planet. She and Aquaman coordinated with local resistance forces, untrained militia, smugglers, and native fighters, turning them into an effective guerrilla unit. While Wonder Woman soared and lassoed decimated droid patrols with precise strikes, Aquaman's command of the local environment turned rivers, tides, and aquatic predators into strategic advantages. Their coordination demonstrated both strength and adaptability, showing that the League's heroes could operate effectively even when detached from their full technological support. Cyborg and Green Lantern focused on electronic and structural threats. Cyborg hacked Separatist communication relays, rerouting intelligence and planting subtle misinformation to draw enemy units into controlled zones. Green Lantern's constructs formed mobile fortifications, protecting civilians and resisting Separatist heavy artillery. Both monitored fluctuations in Force energy, noting that the alien powers the League had introduced were already interacting unpredictably with Jedi and Sith forces alike. Their caution was justified. As Wonder Woman cleared a canyon ambush, a blur of red and black emerged from the shadows. Darth Maul. His double-bladed lightsaber ignited with a sinister hiss, and his movements were a deadly rhythm that matched neither droid nor clone tactics. Superman arrived almost immediately, intercepting Maul mid-leap, while Flash created tempo diversions to prevent surprise attacks. Batman coordinated ground defenses. Cyborg targeted Maul's communication links for electronic interference, and Green Lantern constructed energy restraints designed to contain a combatant moving at superhuman speed. The battle was fierce and unlike anything in the League's previous experiences. Maul's agility and force-fueled reflexes matched Wonder Woman's combat precision, while Superman's strength confronted raw, dark-side-enhanced martial skill. Flash moved unpredictably, phasing through attacks, while Green Lantern and Cyborg manipulated the battlefield's environment to limit Maul's options. Aquaman used terrain and local wildlife strategically, providing support without direct engagement. Even in this chaotic conflict, the League's restraint was notable. Superman refrained from lethal force, aware that killing Maul could destabilize the already fragile regional balance. Wonder Woman used her lasso to subdue, not harm, and Batman directed clones and militia to contain rather than annihilate. Maul, recognizing their moral boundaries, became increasingly erratic, attempting psychological manipulation through whispers, taunts, and feints designed to provoke ethical lapses. At one pivotal moment, Flash's temporal jump created a micro-distortion that caused Maul's swing to miss Wonder Woman by mere inches, simultaneously displacing a clone battalion slightly out of formation. Batman immediately adjusted defensive positions, redirecting both clones and civilians away from danger. Superman used the opportunity to push Maul back, engaging in a grappling contest that tested both physical limits and strategic patience. By the end of the engagement, Maul retreated with calculated precision, recognizing the League's combined effectiveness and moral steadfastness. He left behind chaos, but no permanent casualties among allies. Jedi Masters observing remotely noted with cautious approval that the League had operated within ethical constraints, while neutralizing an extraordinary threat, a balance that few in the galaxy could maintain consistently. The confrontation, however, served as a stark reminder. Alien powers could not simply overwrite galactic conflict. Maul's retreat signaled that the League's interventions were now being actively monitored and countered by force-sensitive adversaries. Each battle would escalate, not just in scale, but in the ethical and strategic complexity the League would have to navigate. Dooku's spies relayed detailed reports to him following the skirmish. "They are formidable," he said, voice low and measured. "But their morality is predictable. They hesitate when confronted with ethical dilemmas. We will exploit that. Patience and cunning, not brute force, will determine their breaking point." He had begun constructing a long-term strategy to destabilize the League indirectly, forcing difficult choices that would test unity, resolve, and principle. In the aftermath, the League convened across secure channels. Wonder Woman's tone was measured. The first confrontation with a Sith has taught us that power alone is insufficient. We must consider strategy, ethics, and long-term consequences with every decision. Superman nodded, adding, "We are no longer just observers. Our presence is shaping this galaxy, and we must act accordingly." The stage was set for the next escalation. The League had demonstrated extraordinary skill and restraint, yet the galaxy had begun to respond. Every action they took now had consequences beyond immediate outcomes, rippling through political, military, and force-sensitive spheres alike. The Clone Wars, and the Justice League's place within it, were evolving in ways no one could have predicted. The escalation of conflict demanded decisive action. Intelligence gathered by Batman, Cyborg, and Green Lantern revealed that the Separatists were preparing to deploy an experimental droid battalion equipped with advanced cloaking, energy-dampening shields, and AI capable of predicting conventional combat patterns. The battalion's deployment threatened a vital mid-rim supply chain supporting Republic forces and local civilian populations. With Dooku orchestrating subtle manipulations in the background, the Justice League faced their first morally complex decision. Engage immediately, risking collateral damage or delay intervention, allowing the Separatists to seize strategic advantage, but preserving lives and infrastructure. Superman hovered high above the mid-rim plains, analyzing the operational layout. If we strike now, we can neutralize the threat before it reaches populated zones, he said. Wonder Woman's hand rested on his shoulder, her expression thoughtful. But the planetary terrain is unstable, and civilians are nearby. A direct assault could cause unintended harm. Batman interjected via secure comms, outlining alternative tactical options. We can create controlled interference in the droid network, redirecting them into open terrain where our engagement can be surgical. Civilian exposure will be minimal, and it buys time for the clones to reinforce defensive positions. The team divided responsibilities with precision. Flash volunteered to map temporal vectors and predict the battalion's projected path, his speed allowing him to outpace even the droid AI's calculations. Cyborg interfaced with local sensor arrays, feeding Green Lantern real-time data to construct containment zones and adaptive energy barriers. Aquaman coordinated with local environmental forces, manipulating rivers and subterranean water flows to create natural obstacles that could slow the droids without endangering civilians. The battle commenced with surgical precision. Green Lantern constructed massive kinetic barriers that redirected the cloaked droids into designated open zones. Flash's carefully timed jumps disrupted their predictive AI, introducing variables the machines could not compensate for. Cyborg's interface overloaded targeting systems momentarily, creating critical openings. Superman engaged only when necessary, delivering non-lethal force in precise bursts to neutralize high-threat units, while Wonder Woman intercepted and disabled multiple droids with her sword and lasso, minimizing the risk to nearby structures. Yet, as the engagement intensified, Dooku's long game unfolded. Using remote force manipulation, he subtly influenced local clone battalions, creating micro-conflicts between orders and personal judgment. The League quickly recognized the interference. Batman's surveillance identified slight deviations in clone unit coordination. He's testing our moral calculus, Batman relayed. He wants to see if we'll override clone protocol to save lives, or adhere strictly to military chain of command, even if it costs civilians. The decision fell to Wonder Woman and Superman. Should they override clone directives to prioritize civilian safety, risking potential strategic setbacks, or comply strictly with orders and let the Separatists gain ground? Superman's eyes scanned the affected zones, calculating projected casualties in both scenarios. Wonder Woman's hand tightened on her lasso. "We do what we can to protect life," she said firmly. "Strategy is secondary to principle." The clones received discreet guidance to reposition without breaching command hierarchy, ensuring minimal civilian harm while maintaining operational integrity. Flash executed a series of high-velocity diversions, appearing simultaneously in multiple locations to disorient droid formations. Green Lantern adapted constructs dynamically, responding to unforeseen countermeasures deployed by the droids. Cyborg systems detected energy anomalies consistent with Dooku's force manipulation and transmitted corrective protocols to clone commanders, neutralizing confusion without revealing the League's presence. Aquaman continued to manipulate the environment, using subtle currents and tidal pressure to stall droid advancement. The battle reached its climax when Superman confronted the lead droid unit equipped with reinforced energy shields. Standard offensive measures proved insufficient, requiring him to combine raw strength with precise tactical strikes. Wonder Woman coordinated a simultaneous strike, using her sword to weaken structural integrity, while Green Lantern restrained the droid's mobility with adaptive constructs. Flash's temporal maneuvers allowed Superman and Wonder Woman to exploit brief windows of vulnerability, neutralizing the battalion without civilian casualties. Even with victory secured, the League faced consequences. Minor structural damage occurred in surrounding areas, and local populations were unnerved by the display of overwhelming power. Jedi observers noted the ethical restraint exhibited, but warned that repeated interventions of this scale could foster dependency or fear, disrupting local social structures and long-term stability. Batman documented these lessons meticulously, reinforcing the principle that raw power alone was insufficient for lasting justice. Meanwhile, Dooku retreated to recalibrate his strategy. He recognized that brute force would not yield results against the League, whose coordinated actions demonstrated not only physical superiority, but also moral discipline. Instead, he began plotting subtler manipulations, destabilizing alliances, exploiting ethical dilemmas, and creating scenarios where the League's intervention might unintentionally produce conflict. Patience became his greatest weapon, and the Jedi Council's underestimation of these new variables worked in his favor. The League regrouped, assessing both operational and ethical outcomes. "We cannot simply rely on force," Batman reminded them. "Every engagement shapes perceptions, affects civilians, and invites countermeasures. We must refine our approach." Superman nodded. "Agreed. Our power is a tool, but it is the decisions behind it that define the impact. We act with responsibility always." Wonder Woman added, "And we must anticipate not just immediate threats, but long-term consequences. Ethics guide our strategy as much as strength." In the aftermath, the League began to understand a fundamental truth. This galaxy did not operate on the same moral or physical constants as their home universe. Force manipulation, political intrigue, and systemic instability required them to blend raw power with strategy, ethics, and adaptability. Every decision carried weight, and every action was observed by allies and adversaries alike. The Clone Wars had become a crucible, testing not only their abilities, but also their principles. The stage was set for the League's next challenge, a confrontation that would test unity, moral judgment, and the limits of power in a galaxy increasingly aware of their presence. The moral complexity of war, the unpredictable interference of the Force, and the subtle manipulations of Sith Masters ensured that victory would never be straightforward, and that every choice could ripple across countless star systems. The next escalation came in the form of a calculated separatist offensive targeting the Mid-Rim's strategic hyperspace routes. Intelligence from Cyborg and Green Lantern revealed a network of hidden droid deployment hubs, designed to bypass Republic monitoring and create a surprise pincer movement against multiple systems. Worse, Count Dooku had subtly influenced local commanders to interpret standard League interventions as threats, increasing the likelihood of confrontation between allies and the Justice League. The moral and strategic stakes had never been higher. Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman convened in a secluded canyon on Rylotha's moons to analyze the intelligence. "This isn't just about stopping droids," Batman explained, pointing at holographic overlays. "It's about perception. The Republic is beginning to question us. Jedi are wary. Separatists are learning our patterns. If we're not careful, we become pawns in Dooku's larger plan." Wonder Woman's eyes glinted with determination. "Then we act with precision, surgical interventions that preserve both life and balance. We cannot let ourselves be manipulated by fear or mistrust." Superman nodded. "Agreed. Every move must serve principle as well as strategy." The League divided responsibilities for the operation. Flash was tasked with scouting hyperspace entry points, using his temporal abilities to identify and monitor droid movements across multiple systems simultaneously. His speed allowed him to relay near-instant intelligence, but each jump subtly strained local force fields, creating minor disturbances that Jedi observers noticed immediately. Luminara Unduli remarked to Kit Fisto, "They move beyond the natural currents of the Force. We can sense it, but cannot predict it fully. Their interventions are unprecedented." Cyborg interfaced with the droid command networks, exploiting weaknesses in the Separatist AI while simultaneously planting disruptive algorithms. Green Lantern's constructs formed containment fields around hyperspace nodes, preventing droids from escaping to alternative routes and minimizing collateral damage. Aquaman manipulated tidal currents and subterranean waterways to delay droid reinforcements on coastal and riverine systems, creating natural bottlenecks that amplified the League's tactical efficiency. On the front lines, Wonder Woman led direct engagement with elite droid squadrons. Her sword and lasso combined with Superman's strength neutralized high-threat units swiftly, while Flash created unpredictable diversions that disoriented both droids and force-sensing adversaries attempting to anticipate their movements. Batman coordinated clone reinforcements and civilian evacuations, ensuring that the League's interventions remained ethical without compromising operational objectives. As the League engaged, Count Dooku enacted a subtler strategy. Using force manipulation, he caused small misalignments in clone battalion coordination and subtly altered separatist droid deployment patterns to create ethical dilemmas for the League. One scenario involved a captured outpost where civilian and military presence overlapped. Superman and Wonder Woman had to choose between immediate offensive action to neutralize a droid unit or delaying intervention to minimize civilian risk. Choosing restraint, they coordinated with clones and Flash's temporal positioning to isolate threats, demonstrating their adherence to principle even under immense tactical pressure. The operation's climax occurred when a massive droid battalion, previously hidden under cloaking fields, attempted a surprise strike on a hyperspace relay. Superman intercepted the lead unit's mid-flight, while Green Lantern's energy constructs immobilized droids in a cascading containment grid. Flash used microjumps to redirect incoming fire and disorient droid AI, creating openings for Wonder Woman's precision strikes. Cyborg severed remaining network connections, ensuring that the battalion's coordination collapsed before civilian systems were endangered. Aquaman used local ocean currents to prevent additional reinforcements from arriving, sealing the pincer movement completely. Even with victory, the operation left the League aware of a growing problem. Dooku's manipulations extended beyond immediate combat. Jedi and Republic commanders had begun questioning the League's methods, while Separatists learned to anticipate the League's moral and tactical patterns. Each intervention now carried unintended consequences, from political friction to tactical adaptation by enemies. The Justice League's presence, while overwhelmingly powerful, was no longer a guarantee of straightforward success. Batman emphasized this during the post-battle analysis. Dooku doesn't need to defeat us in open combat. He needs to force moral and strategic compromises. If we are predictable in either ethics or tactics, he will exploit it. Superman's expression hardened. Then we evolve. Our actions must be principled, yes, but also unpredictable. Adaptation is as critical as strength. Wonder Woman added, and we must maintain discipline across all members. Every decision affects countless lives, and failure to act with judgment has consequences far beyond immediate victories. In private, Dooku assessed the League's performance with cold calculation. Their coordinated abilities, moral discipline, and adaptability were formidable, but not invulnerable. He began constructing multi-layered contingencies, including psychological operations, political manipulation, and battlefield deceptions designed to force them into ethically compromised positions. His strategy relied not on brute force, but on patience, testing the limits of their unity and moral framework. For the Justice League, the campaign had evolved. Tactical victories were tempered by ethical dilemmas, political scrutiny, and the realization that sheer power alone could not dictate outcomes. Every engagement required a delicate balance of intervention and restraint, each decision potentially rippling across entire star systems. The Clone Wars had become a complex arena where morality, strategy, and alien abilities intersected in unprecedented ways. As night fell across the mid-rim, the League convened quietly. Superman gazed at distant stars, the weight of responsibility pressing heavily. We're no longer simply fighting battles. We're navigating a galaxy where every choice can alter the course of war, politics, and life itself. Wonder Woman's hand rested on his arm, her voice steady. Then we act with clarity. We do what is right, not what is expected. That is our path. In the shadows, Dooku observed silently, recognizing that the Justice League had become both a force to reckon with and a challenge to manipulate. The next phase of escalation would test not only their strength, but their unity, morality, and capacity to adapt to a galaxy increasingly aware of their presence. The culmination of Dooku's machinations arrived with precision and subtlety. Intelligence reports indicated that Separatist forces had established a hidden fortress on the volcanic world of Mustafar, where molten rivers and jagged obsidian cliffs made conventional assault nearly impossible. More troubling, Dooku himself had been observed meditating in the fortress, presumably drawing on the planet's intense dark side energy to amplify his abilities and prepare contingencies for the Justice League's inevitable arrival. The challenge was clear. The League would face not just droids or local combatants, but a Sith Lord in his most prepared and lethal form. Batman gathered the team in a secure tactical node orbiting Mustafar. Holographic maps displayed the fortress, its energy shields, lava channels, and patrol patterns. "This is unlike previous engagements," Batman said. "Dooku has control over both environment and enemy. He has anticipated our moves, exploiting our moral patterns and tactical tendencies. Any misstep could be catastrophic." Superman's jaw tightened. "Then we must approach this not as a frontal assault, but as a coordinated surgical intervention. Lives will be at stake, but principle remains paramount." Wonder Woman's eyes reflected determination. "We cannot falter. The innocents caught in this conflict deserve protection, even if the Sith believes otherwise." Flash took the lead in recon, using his temporal jumps to map the fortress's energy fluctuations and patrol rotations. His speed allowed him to traverse lava channels and solid ground almost simultaneously, feeding real-time intelligence to Cyborg and Green Lantern. Cyborg interfaced with remote systems to identify energy nodes and droid control arrays, while Green Lantern prepared dynamic constructs capable of both shielding allies and restraining hostile units. Aquaman coordinated with local magma and water pockets, creating microbarriers and redirection currents to manipulate terrain to the League's advantage. The first strike involved Wonder Woman and Superman neutralizing the outer droid defenses. Wonder Woman's lasso ensnared units with precision, while her sword disabled critical energy nodes, ensuring minimal risk of chain reactions or structural collapses. Superman intercepted heavier assault units, employing non-lethal force to incapacitate rather than destroy, mindful of environmental hazards and potential collateral damage. Each move was calculated, precise, and ethical, a testament to the League's adaptation to the galaxy's moral and physical constraints. Dooku, sensing the intrusion through the Force, ignited his red lightsaber, the blade casting ominous reflections across molten rock. He moved with the deadly fluidity of a seasoned Sith, anticipating and countering attacks with surgical precision. His first confrontation was with Superman, testing both his strength and judgment. Despite Dooku's skill, Superman's raw power, combined with tactical restraint, allowed him to counter and contain attacks without lethal force. Wonder Woman engaged simultaneously, her movements a dance of strength and strategy, while Batman's surveillance and guidance directed clone forces and civilian evacuation safely around the battlefield. Flash's temporal interventions became critical during direct confrontation. By phasing through time briefly, he created openings in Dooku's attacks that allowed Superman and Wonder Woman to exploit vulnerabilities. Each jump, however, slightly strained local force currents, forcing Flash to balance precision and caution to avoid destabilizing the environment or unintentionally affecting clone and civilian positions. Cyborg's interference with droid reinforcements and energy networks ensured that Dooku could not summon technological backup without delay. Green Lantern's constructs dynamically adapted to lava flows, providing shields and pathways that maintained both operational integrity and ethical considerations. The battle escalated when Dooku unleashed a series of force storms, manipulating the volcanic terrain to create natural traps and hazards. Lava eruptions, collapsing rock formations, and energy discharges created a chaotic battlefield. The Justice League adapted fluidly, using combined abilities to mitigate dangers while maintaining focus on strategic objectives. Superman lifted collapsing boulders and redirected lava flows. Wonder Woman created controlled openings and barriers with her sword and shield, and Green Lantern contained erratic energy discharges with adaptive constructs. Flash's timing prevented environmental hazards from overwhelming allies or civilians, while Aquaman manipulated subterranean water pockets to stabilize unstable ground. As the conflict reached its climax, Dooku attempted a direct strike on Flash, seeking to exploit temporal vulnerability. Superman and Wonder Woman intercepted, creating a triad of defense that countered both physical and force-based attacks. Batman's guidance ensured clone units remained coordinated, preventing confusion induced by Dooku's subtle manipulations. Cyborg targeted energy nodes within the fortress, collapsing droid production and limiting reinforcements. Green Lantern restrained additional adversaries attempting to flank the team, ensuring containment rather than destruction. The League's combined power, ethics, and strategy forced Dooku into retreat. Recognizing the futility of direct confrontation against such coordination, he withdrew to preserve his strength and recalibrate plans. Mustafar's fortress remained intact, but separatist operations were significantly crippled. Jedi observers and clone commanders noted with cautious approval that the League had not only succeeded tactically, but had done so without compromising moral principles. However, the battle illuminated an unsettling reality. Even victories carried consequences. Minor environmental damage, shifts in local political alliances, and the perception of alien power created uncertainty among both Republic and Separatist factions. Dooku's manipulation had forced the League into complex moral and tactical calculations, demonstrating that their intervention, while overwhelmingly effective, was not without ripple effects across the galaxy. In the aftermath, Superman and Wonder Woman gathered the team. "We've neutralized a major threat," Superman said. "But our presence continues to influence events in ways we cannot fully predict. Every choice carries weight, and every action is observed." Wonder Woman added, "We must remain vigilant. The Sith will continue to challenge us, but so will the unintended consequences of our own interventions. Strategy, ethics, and adaptability are our greatest weapons moving forward." Dooku, observing from shadowed corridors, reflected on the battle. "They are formidable," he murmured. "But power alone does not guarantee wisdom. Patience and subtlety remain my greatest tools. The next phase will test not just their strength, but their principles, unity, and adaptability. This galaxy is theirs to shape, but not without cost." The Justice League had faced the full measure of the Sith's cunning and emerged successful. Yet the war had revealed the delicate balance required to act as heroes in a galaxy governed by the Force. Every victory was a lesson, every choice a potential crucible. The Clone Wars had become a stage where morality, strategy, and alien abilities collided, and the League's journey was only intensifying. The aftermath of Mustafar's confrontation sent shockwaves through multiple layers of the galaxy. Republic Command struggled to adapt to the reality of alien heroes operating independently within its territory. Jedi Masters debated whether the League's interventions violated the natural order of the Force, while clone commanders cautiously integrated their strategies without ceding autonomy to extraterrestrial influence. Even Separatist cells were forced to reconsider offensive tactics, recognizing that any misstep could be swiftly neutralized by beings far beyond conventional comprehension. Superman convened the League aboard a repurposed Venator-class cruiser orbiting Mustafar. His gaze swept over the team, aware that the victories had not diminished the underlying complexities. "We've achieved tactical success, but our presence has created new ethical and political pressures," he stated. Wonder Woman nodded, adding, "Every intervention carries consequences. The galaxy adapts to us as quickly as we adapt to it. We cannot simply impose justice without understanding the wider effects." Batman had been quietly monitoring political channels and Sith movements, analyzing subtle manipulations in clone morale and Separatist intelligence. "Dooku is shifting strategies," he noted, "tracing communications and Force disturbances. He knows he cannot defeat us outright. Instead, he will challenge our ethics, exploit our sense of responsibility, and manipulate alliances to create dilemmas we cannot solve with brute strength." Flash, sensing the temporal anomalies that continued to ripple across multiple star systems due to his jumps, expressed concern. "Every micro-jump we've made has created small changes in timelines and battle outcomes. Innocent lives are affected in ways we can't always predict. The galaxy is fragile, and our presence amplifies that fragility. Cyborg's interface confirmed these subtle but significant effects. Our interventions are being recorded, analyzed, and adapted to. The Separatists are learning not just tactics, but also anticipating moral decisions. We need to evolve beyond predictable responses. Green Lantern and Aquaman propose strategic measures to manage both immediate threats and long-term stability. Green Lantern constructed semi-permanent observation and containment nodes across critical mid-rim systems, while Aquaman coordinated planetary environmental monitoring to ensure that ecological balance was maintained amidst military operations. Together, they created a framework to intervene surgically, minimizing collateral damage while providing support to Republic forces and civilian populations. The next critical challenge emerged from the political sphere. Several Republic senators, increasingly aware of the League's influence, began lobbying for direct oversight and formal integration into military campaigns. Some argued that the League's abilities could end the war swiftly if deployed unilaterally, while others feared the loss of autonomy and potential misuse of power. Superman and Wonder Woman engaged in discreet negotiations, emphasizing that their interventions were guided by principle, not political expedience. "We act to protect life," Superman explained. "We will not be commandeered as weapons or tools for conquest. Our allegiance is to justice, not bureaucracy." This stance, while morally sound, created tension with the Jedi Order. Masters like Mace Windu expressed caution, noting that unchecked alien abilities could disrupt the Force in ways that were unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Jedi reconnaissance teams reported disturbances in local midi-chlorian counts where the League had intervened, suggesting that even minor actions could influence Force balance over time. Wonder Woman's response was measured. "We respect the Force and those attuned to it, but we must act when lives are at risk, even if it challenges tradition. Morality cannot be constrained by fear of unknown consequences." Dooku, observing from afar, recognized an emerging fracture in the League's influence, the tension between principle, strategy, and political pressure. He dispatched subtle agents to exploit this, planting rumors and staged incidents designed to force ethical compromises. One such operation involved a separatist strike on a civilian transport carrying essential supplies to besieged systems. The League faced a moral dilemma: intervene directly and risk altering the balance of ongoing battles, or attempt a strategic diversion that could save some while endangering others. Superman, Wonder Woman, and Flash coordinated a multi-layered response. Flash manipulated temporal positioning to delay incoming threats. Green Lantern's constructs created protective corridors for civilians, and Aquaman manipulated terrain and waterways to shield critical zones. Superman and Wonder Woman engaged directly only when necessary, prioritizing precision and restraint. Cyborg severed communications to prevent panic and disorganization, while Batman guided clone reinforcements to optimal positions without violating command protocols. The operation succeeded, but not without leaving the League acutely aware of the stakes. Every choice, every intervention, was scrutinized morally and strategically. The galaxy was a web of cause and effect, and the League's presence had become a central thread, woven intricately into conflicts far larger than they had initially anticipated. Dooku's plan, though failing tactically, achieved a subtle victory. The League now recognized that moral clarity alone could not ensure control over outcomes. Ethical decisions had consequences beyond immediate survival, influencing political structures, clone operations, and separatist adaptation. The Sith Lord had forced them into a reality where strategy, principle, and power had to coexist in delicate balance. In the quiet moments following the battle, Superman addressed the team aboard the cruiser. "We have won battles, but the war and the ethical challenges it presents has only intensified. Our presence is no longer a variable, it is a force in itself. We must continue to act with both power and wisdom." Wonder Woman added, "We have demonstrated our capabilities, but the galaxy is watching, learning, and adapting. Every engagement will test our unity, principles, and adaptability." As the Justice League prepared for the next phase of the Clone Wars, it was clear that the universe had shifted. Alien heroes were no longer anomalies. They were central players in a galactic conflict, wielding power, ethics, and influence in a delicate and evolving equilibrium. The stage was set for further confrontations, more intricate ethical challenges, and the ultimate test of unity against forces that operated in shadows, as well as open combat. The next phase of escalation arrived in the Outer Rim, where Separatist influence was strongest and the Republic's reach weakest. Intelligence from Cyborg and Green Lantern revealed that a previously unknown Separatist cell, led by one of Dooku's most cunning lieutenants, was attempting to destabilize multiple systems simultaneously. Their method was subtle: sabotage local infrastructure, manipulate planetary leaders, and deploy droids in ways that minimize direct confrontation while maximizing chaos. The Justice League recognized that conventional engagement, direct combat, would be insufficient. They would need to operate in shadows, combining stealth, intelligence, and ethical precision. Batman, having surveyed the Outer Rim operations from orbit, devised a complex infiltration plan. "We cannot simply hit them head-on," he said, tapping his gauntlet against a holographic map. "Our targets are distributed, and collateral damage could destabilize entire systems. We need surgical strikes, misdirection, and coordination with local allies." Wonder Woman and Superman agreed, emphasizing the necessity of balancing effectiveness with ethical responsibility. "Our goal is not to annihilate," Superman stated, "but to neutralize threats and protect innocence. We cannot become the very force of tyranny we oppose." The team divided responsibilities with meticulous care. Flash executed rapid reconnaissance, jumping across multiple systems to identify key nodes and anticipate Separatist maneuvers. Each jump revealed subtle anomalies in local force readings, indicating potential interference by hidden Sith operatives. Cyborg and Green Lantern worked in tandem, intercepting communications and creating adaptive constructs to isolate droid units while protecting civilian infrastructure. Aquaman coordinated with local environmental elements, using natural barriers and tidal manipulation to channel movements and reduce the risk to populated areas. The first engagement occurred on the arid world of Rylotha's southern continent, where Separatist operatives had sabotaged critical power grids and created conditions for widespread civil unrest. Wonder Woman led a strike team to restore order, disabling sabotage devices with precision while simultaneously neutralizing armed droid patrols. Superman provided backup, ensuring the safety of local populations and preventing the structural collapse of key facilities. Flash created microtemporal diversions, disrupting droid movement patterns and creating openings for strategic interventions. Meanwhile, Batman coordinated with local resistance factions, including Twi'lek militia and covert Republic sympathizers. He guided their movements, ensuring that insurgent efforts complemented the League's operations rather than conflicting with them. Cyborg, interfacing with planetary networks, disrupted droid coordination remotely, neutralizing reinforcements before they could reach critical zones. Green Lantern created mobile barriers and defensive constructs, while Aquaman's manipulation of subterranean waterways prevented droid retreat or reinforcement through natural channels. The moral complexities of these engagements became immediately apparent. In one sector, civilians were trapped between a droid offensive and a collapsing energy conduit. Superman and Wonder Woman faced a choice: prioritize the civilians, potentially allowing droids to escape and regroup, or neutralize the droids first, risking civilian harm. They chose intervention focused on protection, combining coordinated strength, Flash's temporal diversions, and Green Lantern's containment constructs to save lives without sacrificing tactical advantage. Dooku, observing from afar, recognized the effectiveness of these combined strategies but noted a pattern. The League's ethical framework consistently influenced tactical decisions. He began to engineer more intricate scenarios, including orchestrated ambushes designed to force the League into morally compromising positions. In one system, he directed Separatist forces to exploit local animosities, creating situations where intervention could inadvertently escalate conflicts between indigenous factions. The climax of the Outer Rim campaign occurred when the League confronted a major separatist command center hidden within a mountainous system. Droids equipped with advanced cloaking technology and energy-absorbing shields were deployed alongside Force-enhanced operatives loyal to Dooku. Superman and Wonder Woman led the frontline assault, carefully dismantling droid units with non-lethal force. Flash created unpredictable diversions that disoriented enemy formations, while Cyborg targeted command networks to neutralize coordination. Green Lantern constructed containment grids around hazardous areas, and Aquaman manipulated subterranean waterways to control enemy movement and environmental hazards. Even in victory, the campaign highlighted the League's ongoing challenge. Their interventions, however precise, had ripple effects across political, ecological, and force-sensitive domains. Clone commanders and Jedi observed with a mixture of awe and concern, recognizing that the League's alien powers could alter local and galactic dynamics in ways they could neither predict nor fully control. Dooku, though thwarted tactically, continued to plot, devising more sophisticated schemes to test the League's principles, unity, and adaptability. In the aftermath, Superman addressed the team aboard their cruiser. The Outer Rim campaign has demonstrated our capabilities, but also our limitations. We can neutralize threats, protect civilians, and disrupt enemy operations. But every action has consequences we cannot fully anticipate. Wonder Woman added, we must continue to act with clarity, principle, and adaptability. Our influence is growing, and with it comes responsibility far beyond simple battlefield success. The Justice League, having navigated the moral and tactical complexities of the Outer Rim, recognized that the Clone Wars and their role within it had become a crucible for both power and principle. Every victory was tempered by ethical challenges, every strategic success shadowed by unforeseen consequences. As Dooku's manipulations grew increasingly subtle, the League's unity, judgment, and adaptability would be tested in ways no hero had encountered before. As the League consolidated their efforts in the Outer Rim, reports arrived of an emergent alliance between rogue Mandalorian clans and separatist operatives. These clans, historically bound by honor and territorial loyalty, had been manipulated into coordinating attacks on trade routes and Republic outposts. The Justice League faced an unprecedented challenge, navigating a conflict where cultural codes, political loyalties, and galactic war objectives intersected, all while maintaining ethical conduct. Batman, analyzing intelligence from multiple systems, briefed the team. These Mandalorian factions operate on a code of honor, and any perception of betrayal could provoke indiscriminate violence. The Separatists are exploiting this, embedding droid units within clans to mask attacks as internal conflict. A direct assault risks civilian casualties and long-term destabilization. Superman nodded. Then diplomacy and precision are our weapons. We cannot rely on force alone. Wonder Woman's eyes hardened with determination. We honor their code as we intervene. Lives depend on our respect as much as our strength. The first approach involved reconnaissance and direct engagement with a Mandalorian scouting party. Flash moved at high velocity, mapping patrols and detecting hidden droid units embedded among clan forces. His speed allowed him to relay information to Cyborg, who coordinated targeted interventions to disable droid operatives without violating Mandalorian integrity. Green Lantern constructed containment fields that allowed Mandalorian forces to maneuver freely while preventing droid reinforcements from escaping. Superman and Wonder Woman acted as both protectors and mediators, confronting droid threats while conveying a non-hostile posture to Mandalorian warriors. Superman's immense strength allowed him to redirect collapsing structures and prevent accidental fatalities, while Wonder Woman's lasso and shield ensured that droid units were incapacitated rather than destroyed, maintaining ethical consistency. Aquaman utilized subterranean waterways and natural environmental features to create barriers that subtly guided combatants away from vulnerable areas. Negotiations, however, proved complicated. The Mandalorian clans were wary of outsiders, particularly beings of immense power who operated outside traditional galactic structures. Batman leveraged cultural knowledge, using recorded histories, behavioral observation, and psychological tactics to demonstrate the League's respect for their code. "We are not here to conquer or dictate," Batman emphasized. "We are allies in maintaining balance and protecting life." Slowly, trust was established, though fragile and contingent on continued ethical behavior. The Separatist commander, observing the League's efforts, attempted to exploit the tenuous alliance. Cloaked droid units and Force-sensitive operatives initiated simultaneous assaults, targeting both Mandalorian and League forces. The ensuing battle demanded the League's full coordination. Flash created temporal diversions to misdirect droid units, while Green Lantern constructed dynamic energy corridors to isolate threats. Cyborg disabled key command networks, neutralizing droid coordination, and Aquaman manipulated environmental features to prevent enemy mobility. Superman and Wonder Woman confronted the Separatist commander and Force-enhanced operatives directly. Wonder Woman's sword intercepted energy blasts with surgical precision, while her lasso incapacitated multiple combatants without lethal force. Superman combined immense physical strength with careful restraint, neutralizing threats while minimizing environmental destruction. Batman coordinated both ground and aerial forces, ensuring Mandalorian warriors were protected and able to participate in the engagement without jeopardizing civilians. The battle's climax arrived when Dooku, manipulating events remotely, initiated a force storm designed to destabilize the volcano-adjacent environment. Lava fissures erupted, rock slides threatened the battlefield, and droid units surged unpredictably. Flash's temporal speed allowed him to anticipate and mitigate environmental hazards, while Green Lantern's constructs contained shifting terrain and trapped hostile units. Aquaman redirected subterranean water flows, counteracting lava surges to prevent casualties. Superman and Wonder Woman combined strength, skill, and strategy to maintain battlefield integrity while systematically neutralizing threats. By the end, the Mandalorian clans, impressed by the League's restraint, coordination, and respect for cultural codes, pledged conditional support. Though wary of alien intervention, they recognized the League's capability to act ethically while achieving strategic objectives, a stark contrast to previous manipulations by Separatist or Sith forces. The alliance, fragile but functional, created a strategic foothold for subsequent operations across the Outer Rim. Dooku, observing from a distance, acknowledged the challenge presented by the League's combination of power, strategy, and ethical steadfastness. He recognized that direct confrontation was increasingly futile, and that subtle manipulations, exploiting alliances, cultural dynamics, and moral dilemmas, would be necessary to challenge them effectively. His plans now extended beyond military engagement into psychological warfare and political subversion. In the aftermath, Superman addressed the team, noting the importance of diplomacy alongside combat effectiveness. "Our victory here is not just measured in enemy casualties or territory secured. It is measured by trust earned and lives preserved. Every ethical choice we make strengthens our influence and our credibility," Wonder Woman added, "and every choice sets a precedent. We are not simply intervening in a war. We are demonstrating a model of justice and morality that can endure even amidst chaos." The Justice League had expanded the scope of their role in the galaxy, not only as powerful combatants, but as ethical leaders capable of navigating complex cultural, political, and strategic challenges. The Clone Wars had become a crucible for the League's philosophy, testing the limits of principle, adaptability, and coordinated power in a universe far removed from their own. The League's influence had begun to ripple across the galaxy, drawing attention not only from the Republic and Separatists, but also from factions that operated outside the traditional conflict. The Hutt Cartel, sensing the appearance of near-omnipotent beings, began restructuring their criminal networks, leveraging chaos to expand territorial influence. Meanwhile, fringe systems in the Mid and Outer Rim started forming independent militias, either to align with the League or exploit them for leverage. This complex tapestry of factions required careful navigation, as alliances and conflicts now extended beyond traditional Clone Wars dynamics. Batman analyzed reports from local informants and droid reconnaissance, identifying three primary threats: separatist cells adapting to League interventions, Hutt-controlled systems attempting to manipulate galactic trade, and emergent militias exploiting instability. "We cannot approach this as a simple battlefield scenario," he briefed the team. "Our opponents are decentralized, opportunistic, and unpredictable. Ethical intervention is complicated when the lines between friend and foe blur." Superman's gaze hardened. "Then we must balance precision with adaptability. Force is influential, but our presence is the ultimate variable." Wonder Woman nodded. "And our choices will define how these factions view power, responsibility, and trust." The first critical operation focused on Tatooine, where Hutts had leveraged separatist droid technology to expand smuggling and slave operations. The League devised a multi-tiered plan. Flash would disrupt supply chains with temporal microjumps, redirecting cargo and isolating key assets. Green Lantern would contain hostile forces and protect innocents, creating zones where intervention could occur safely. Aquaman, using subterranean water tables, subtly limited environmental access points, preventing escape or unintended casualties. Cyborg infiltrated Hutt communications, sowing disinformation while isolating droid and automated defense units. His precise interference allowed the League to coordinate surgical strikes without alerting Hutts to their exact capabilities. Meanwhile, Batman worked to build local alliances, discreetly coordinating with sympathetic merchants and settlers, providing intelligence and tactical options to minimize civilian risk. Superman and Wonder Woman confronted key enforcers directly, disabling operations without lethal force, emphasizing restraint and ethical intervention. The operation's climax occurred when a separatist-backed droid convoy attempted to escape Tatooine's orbit. Superman intercepted the lead units mid-flight, while Wonder Woman neutralized energy shields and incapacitated key commanders using her lasso. Flash disrupted droid formation patterns, Cyborg severed command networks, and Green Lantern contained residual units. Aquaman's manipulation of local terrain prevented reinforcements from arriving. The mission succeeded with minimal collateral damage, demonstrating the League's ability to balance immense power with ethical considerations. The next challenge emerged from the Hutt response. Jabba's agents, infuriated by the disruption of operations, orchestrated ambushes using mercenaries and bounty hunters. This scenario required the League to operate in the morally gray space between neutral intervention and active enforcement. Wonder Woman engaged bounty hunters with a combination of skill and non-lethal restraint, while Superman neutralized high-threat targets strategically. Flash redirected attacks, creating openings and preventing civilian casualties. Cyborg and Green Lantern ensured operational integrity by disabling automated defenses without endangering settlers. Batman coordinated the broader strategy, maintaining alignment with ethical principles while exploiting tactical vulnerabilities. In the aftermath, the Hutt's influence on Tatooine was diminished, though not eradicated. The League recognized that their presence had destabilized criminal networks, but also inspired adaptation and countermeasures among those who thrived in chaos. Their victories had created a new strategic and moral precedent. Power could be applied ethically, but influence would inevitably provoke opposition and unforeseen consequences. Meanwhile, Dooku, observing these developments, began refining his approach. He understood that the Justice League's interventions were not merely physical threats. They were philosophical challenges. Their insistence on ethical engagement disrupted both separatist manipulation and Sith strategy. To counteract, he began targeting factions that could be manipulated into conflict with the League, engineering moral dilemmas designed to test unity, patience, and decision-making under pressure. The League, aware of these subtleties, adapted by integrating political, cultural, and strategic awareness into all operations. Every engagement became an exercise in balance. Combat effectiveness weighed against ethical obligation, strategic success weighed against potential ripple effects, and raw power measured against the consequences of its application. The Clone Wars, once a conventional theater of combat, had become a multidimensional challenge requiring adaptability at every level. Superman addressed the team as they reviewed outcomes on a secure orbital platform. Our victories here are measured not only in territory or neutralized threats, but in lives preserved and precedents set. We are shaping perceptions and influencing outcomes in ways far beyond simple combat. Wonder Woman added, and with influence comes responsibility. Every decision must be deliberate, every action ethical, and every outcome carefully considered. The Justice League had now firmly established themselves as a force in the galaxy, ethical, strategic, and immensely powerful. Yet their presence continued to attract both allies and adversaries, each with motives and agendas that could either complement or conflict with the League's principles. The Clone Wars had transformed into a crucible not only of power, but of morality, diplomacy, and philosophical influence. Every choice, every intervention, carried consequences that would resonate far beyond immediate tactical victories. The galaxy, already stretched thin by the ongoing Clone Wars, began to exhibit fractures far beyond conventional battlefields. Minor systems were embroiled in instability caused not only by separatist incursions, but also by the unintended consequences of the Justice League's interventions. Even with careful planning, their presence had become a disruptive factor, prompting factions to react in ways the League could neither entirely predict nor control. It was here, in the subtle interplay of power, ethics, and influence, that Dooku sought to strike. Dooku's strategy took shape as a multi-layered manipulation of political, military, and cultural systems. He identified vulnerable sectors where the League's ethical principles would be tested. Using forced persuasion and subtle misinformation, he sowed distrust between sympathetic local leaders, creating scenarios where the League would be forced to choose between strictly adhering to their morals or achieving immediate tactical success. These morally complex dilemmas were designed to erode the League's cohesion over time, testing their judgment and unity under pressure. The first manifestation of this scheme occurred on the industrial planet of Raxus Prime, where separatist sympathizers had fomented labor unrest. Factories critical to the Republic war effort were sabotaged, while droid units covertly enforced strikes, blurring the line between legitimate protest and insurrection. Superman and Wonder Woman arrived to mediate, seeking to prevent bloodshed without imposing authoritarian solutions. Batman and Cyborg coordinated intelligence gathering, while Flash monitored movement across the industrial complexes to prevent sudden escalation. Green Lantern and Aquaman established protective constructs and environmental containment measures, ensuring civilian safety. The moral complexity was immediate. Factory overseers demanded harsh measures to regain control, while labor representatives pleaded for autonomy and recognition. Superman advocated dialogue and non-lethal intervention, emphasizing systemic restoration over punishment. Wonder Woman reinforced the principle of justice, tempered by empathy, negotiating compromise solutions that satisfied both sides without resorting to force. The outcome successfully prevented casualties, preserved infrastructure, and diffused immediate threats, though it left lingering tensions that required careful monitoring. Simultaneously, the League faced a direct separatist offensive orchestrated to exploit these moral dilemmas. Droids and Force-enhanced operatives attempted simultaneous sabotage in adjacent sectors, forcing the League to split resources while maintaining ethical consistency. Superman and Wonder Woman engaged frontline threats, neutralizing combatants without lethal force. Flash disrupted droid coordination and enabled rapid civilian evacuation, while Green Lantern contained volatile machinery and hazardous zones. Aquaman leveraged terrain to channel enemy movements and prevent collateral damage, and Cyborg disabled critical control systems to prevent further escalation. Batman coordinated across multiple fronts, ensuring operational integrity despite the divided focus. He guided clone contingents and sympathetic leaders, using psychological insight to predict enemy maneuvers and maintain the ethical high ground. Every tactical choice was informed by principle as much as necessity, illustrating the League's dedication to acting responsibly even under immense pressure. The climax of the Raxus Prime operation arrived when Dooku himself attempted to confront Superman and Wonder Woman using force-augmented combat. The League faced the combined challenge of direct Sith confrontation alongside a politically volatile environment. Superman's immense strength and speed allowed him to counter aggressive strikes, while Wonder Woman's skillful swordplay and strategic lasso use neutralized force-enhanced adversaries. Flash created microtemporal disruptions to unbalance Dooku's attack patterns. Cyborg targeted energy amplifiers and droid reinforcements, and Green Lantern contained environmental hazards. Aquaman's manipulation of underground water channels minimized the risk of structural collapse. Ultimately, the League's combination of power, strategic coordination, and ethical precision forced Dooku to retreat, though the encounter left the planet in partial turmoil. The incident highlighted the persistent tension between tactical success and moral responsibility, emphasizing that even victories carried weighty consequences across social, political, and environmental dimensions. In the aftermath, the Justice League convened aboard their mobile command platform. Superman addressed the team, reflecting on the cumulative lessons of multiple campaigns. We are no longer simply intervening in battles. We are influencing perceptions, guiding ethical standards, and shaping the future of entire systems. Every decision carries consequences beyond immediate success or failure. Wonder Woman added, "Our presence has become a balancing force, but it also attracts scrutiny and provokes subtle manipulations. We must remain vigilant, principled, and adaptable." Dooku, observing from distant coordinates, recognized the growing difficulty in countering a coalition defined not only by immense power, but also by ethical cohesion. His next strategies would require even greater subtlety, exploiting psychological vulnerabilities and orchestrating scenarios where moral compromise might tempt the League to fracture or falter. The battle for influence, philosophy, and moral integrity had become as critical as any direct conflict on the battlefield. As the Justice League prepared to confront these new and layered challenges, it was clear that the Clone Wars had evolved into a complex moral crucible. Their presence had not only altered military outcomes, but also shaped political structures, cultural norms, and ethical standards. Every decision, every intervention, continued to echo across the galaxy, creating consequences that demanded both wisdom and power in equal measure. The culmination of the Justice League's involvement in the Clone Wars arrived in the Core Worlds, where the galaxy's political, military, and ethical stakes converged most intensely. Reports indicated that Dooku, realizing the League's strategic and moral superiority, had orchestrated a series of coordinated attacks designed to fracture alliances, provoke civil unrest, and challenge the League's unity. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test not only strength but wisdom, cohesion, and the ability to act under relentless moral and tactical pressure. Superman convened the team aboard their cruiser, reviewing intelligence compiled by Batman, Cyborg, and Green Lantern. "This is the culmination of Dooku's strategy," Superman said. "He's not just deploying droids or force operatives. He's leveraging political instability, moral dilemmas, and the natural chaos of war. We must anticipate, adapt, and act decisively, without compromising our principles." Wonder Woman nodded. "Our goal is not merely victory, but the preservation of life, justice, and ethical integrity. Every choice will define not only this conflict, but the galaxy's perception of power and responsibility." The League initiated a multi-pronged strategy. Flash and Cyborg were tasked with identifying and neutralizing covert threats, including encrypted communications, droid infiltration, and potential Sith interference. Green Lantern constructed dynamic containment grids over critical areas to prevent civilian casualties and provide operational flexibility. Aquaman manipulated core world waterways and subterranean systems to channel enemy movements and stabilize infrastructure. Batman coordinated both overt and covert operations, leveraging intelligence and psychological insight to anticipate Dooku's manipulations. Superman and Wonder Woman prepared for direct engagement with the Sith Lord and his most formidable operatives. The first phase involved containment and evacuation. Civilian populations were at risk from separatist sabotage, force-augmented operatives, and the cascading effects of infrastructure collapse. Superman used his speed and strength to stabilize structures and redirect hazards, while Wonder Woman coordinated evacuation corridors and neutralized immediate threats. Flash's microtemporal manipulations allowed rapid transport of essential supplies and civilians, while Cyborg intercepted communication attempts by hostile forces to exploit chaos. Green Lantern maintained dynamic shields, and Aquaman ensured natural barriers prevented unanticipated casualties or enemy movement. As the League secured operational stability, Dooku initiated direct engagement, arriving with a cadre of elite force users and droid battalions. His approach was calculated, exploiting environmental hazards, leveraging force manipulation to test decision-making, and provoking moral dilemmas designed to fracture the League's cohesion. Superman and Wonder Woman confronted Dooku head-on, countering his force-augmented attacks with precision, strategy, and restraint. Wonder Woman's lasso contained both droids and force-enhanced enemies without lethal force, while Superman redirected destructive energy to prevent collateral damage. Simultaneously, Batman and Cyborg coordinated the neutralization of droid reinforcements and disrupted command networks, while Green Lantern contained hazardous energy discharges. Flash created temporal diversions, destabilizing enemy formations and providing strategic openings. Aquaman manipulated environmental features to prevent collapse and redirect lava flows, energy surges, and water currents. Every action reflected the League's commitment to ethical engagement while exercising near-omnipotent power. The battle's climax arrived as Dooku attempted a decisive force strike intended to exploit a perceived ethical compromise. The League, however, maintained coordination, adaptability, and moral clarity. Wonder Woman countered Dooku's attacks with both skill and strategy, while Superman anticipated and neutralized environmental hazards. Flash's temporal interventions, Cyborg's network disruption, Green Lantern's containment constructs, and Aquaman's environmental manipulations synchronized perfectly, forcing Dooku into retreat without catastrophic destruction. The aftermath revealed both the magnitude and nuance of a League's intervention. Separatist influence in the core worlds was significantly weakened, and civilian populations were spared widespread harm. However, the confrontation underscored the persistent reality that power and morality in this galaxy required constant balance. Every ethical decision, every strategic choice, created ripple effects across political, military, and cultural domains. In a debrief aboard their cruiser, Superman addressed the team. "We have succeeded not through raw power alone, but through strategy, unity, and ethical principle. We've altered the course of the Clone Wars, protected countless lives, and created alliances that may endure long after our intervention." Wonder Woman added, "Our presence is a force for good, but it also imposes responsibility. We've proven that power can coexist with principle, and that ethical intervention can reshape outcomes in even the most chaotic conflicts." Dooku, observing from hidden coordinates, acknowledged the League's superiority not just in combat, but in principle. He recognized that direct confrontation was no longer sufficient. The League's combination of power, strategy, and ethics had fundamentally altered the calculus of galactic conflict. The Sith Lord's schemes would require innovation, subtlety, and manipulation beyond brute strength, setting the stage for future challenges. The Justice League, having navigated moral dilemmas, tactical challenges, and unprecedented cultural complexities, had established themselves as both protectors and ethical arbiters in a galaxy far from their own. The Clone Wars had become a crucible that tested not only strength, but judgment, unity, and principle. Their victories were measured not in destruction, but in lives preserved, alliances strengthened, and ethical standards demonstrated. As the League prepared to continue their influence across the galaxy, one lesson was clear. True heroism in this universe required the integration of power, strategy, and moral clarity. They had arrived as outsiders, but through adaptability, cooperation, and steadfast principle, they had become central figures in the unfolding history of the Clone Wars. Their journey was far from over, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Justice League's extraordinary journey through the Star Wars galaxy reached a reflective yet consequential pause. Their intervention in the Clone Wars, a conflict spanning thousands of systems, countless lives, and intricate political structures, had demonstrated the extraordinary potential of combining near-omnipotent abilities with unwavering ethical clarity. Unlike previous threats the galaxy had faced, these outsiders did not simply impose power. They wielded it responsibly, shaping outcomes without succumbing to tyranny or moral compromise. The consequences of their actions were profound. Systems previously under separatist control now enjoyed relative stability, thanks to the League's strategic interventions and ethical decision-making. Civilian populations had been shielded from widespread devastation through surgical precision in combat, the intelligent use of environmental manipulation, and the application of force-informed strategies that respected local customs and governance. Even factions that had once relied on chaos, Mandalorian clans, Hutts, and rogue militias, had been forced to reconsider their methods in the presence of beings whose power was paired with principle. The galaxy had witnessed a new model of heroism, one that blended strength with restraint, action with foresight, and power with moral responsibility. Yet these successes came at a cost of continuous vigilance. Every engagement carried ethical complexities, and the League learned that even victories could produce unforeseen ramifications. Dooku's manipulations, subtle and insidious, demonstrated that the mere application of force was insufficient. The broader consequences of choice were equally decisive. In Raxus Prime, Tatooine, and the Outer Rim, the League faced scenarios where the correct tactical solution could conflict with ethical imperatives. These experiences forced them to constantly evaluate their principles, balance immediate outcomes against long-term implications, and weigh the preservation of life against the strategic necessity of intervention. Morally ambiguous situations became the defining feature of their presence. They could save one system, but in doing so might inadvertently create instability in another. They could defeat separatist forces decisively, yet leave populations reliant on fragile alliances or untested governance. The League's adaptability, integrating their unique abilities with careful observation, strategic foresight, and ethical reasoning, ensured that these dilemmas were not mere obstacles, but opportunities for refinement. Each choice, each engagement, became a lesson in stewardship, illustrating the delicate equilibrium required to wield power responsibly in a galaxy governed by both technology and the Force. The League's impact extended beyond battlefield outcomes. Their interactions with Jedi Masters, clone commanders, and local factions highlighted the interplay of philosophy, strategy, and ethics. Jedi Masters observed a combination of power and moral clarity that challenged traditional notions of the Force's monopoly on balance, prompting debates within the Council about the boundaries of intervention and the adaptability of galactic institutions. Clone commanders, accustomed to strict orders and rigid hierarchy, had to adjust to a dynamic where strategic initiative and moral judgment could coexist, enhancing operational effectiveness without resorting to authoritarian control. Even Separatist and Sith observers were forced to recalibrate expectations. The League did not respond predictably to fear, manipulation, or brute force, undermining traditional methods of domination. The Justice League's presence also inspired a new sense of hope, subtle yet persistent. Populations across multiple systems began to recognize that the galaxy need not succumb entirely to the horrors of war. Heroes who combined extraordinary ability with ethical principles offered a model that transcended conventional military success, demonstrating that intervention could be both decisive and just. Even those who remained outside their direct influence, be they neutral factions, opportunistic criminals, or wary planetary governments, were compelled to consider alternative approaches to conflict, governance, and moral responsibility. In this way, the League's intervention reverberated across both immediate and systemic scales, shaping not just outcomes, but perceptions and norms. Nevertheless, the galaxy remained precarious. Dooku, while thwarted in direct confrontation, remained a persistent threat. His schemes had evolved beyond simple military engagement, relying instead on psychological manipulation, exploitation of moral dilemmas, and the careful orchestration of systemic instability. The League understood that maintaining their principles while countering such threats required vigilance, adaptability, and unity. No single victory could guarantee lasting stability. The balance of power and morality demanded continuous effort, nuanced judgment, and coordination across diverse cultural, political, and military landscapes. Within the League itself, the journey forged new depths of collaboration and understanding. Superman's leadership grounded in moral clarity, Wonder Woman's wisdom and diplomacy, Batman's analytical precision, Flash's temporal agility, Green Lantern's adaptive constructs, Aquaman's environmental mastery, and Cyborg's technological integration created a dynamic coalition capable of navigating a galaxy more complex than any they had encountered. Each member's abilities complemented the others, enabling the team to respond to multifaceted challenges that combined ethical, strategic, and operational dimensions. This unity of purpose and diversity of skill allowed the League to act decisively without compromising principle, illustrating the potential for coordinated heroism in a galaxy defined by conflict and moral ambiguity. The thematic resonance of the League's interventions was profound. Across countless star systems, their presence illuminated the possibilities inherent in ethical decision-making under extreme pressure. They demonstrated that power need not equate to domination, that strength could be exercised without oppression, and that moral clarity could guide even the most extraordinary abilities toward lasting, meaningful outcomes. These lessons transcended tactical victories, influencing the very structure of galactic society, from military strategy to civilian governance, from cultural norms to philosophical reflection. In conclusion, the Justice League's foray into the Star Wars galaxy represented more than a series of battles won or territory stabilized. It illustrated the integration of extraordinary power with ethical responsibility, the dynamic interplay of strategy and morality, and the enduring influence of principle amidst chaos. The Clone Wars were transformed from a conventional theater of conflict into a crucible where power, judgment, and conscience were tested in equal measure. The galaxy, forever altered by their presence, would carry forward the lessons of their interventions: hope tempered by wisdom, strength guided by ethics, and heroism defined not solely by might, but by moral courage. The Justice League had entered as outsiders, wielding abilities beyond comprehension. They remained, however, not as conquerors or arbiters of destiny, but as exemplars of what it meant to act with principle in a universe governed by both the tangible and the mystical. Their legacy was not merely measured in victories, alliances, or defeated enemies, but in the ethical standards established, the lives preserved, and the enduring possibility that even amidst war, morality, cooperation, and heroism could prevail. The galaxy was forever changed, its course influenced by beings from beyond its stars, heroes whose presence reshaped battlefields, alliances, and philosophies. And as the Justice League prepared for future challenges, both immediate and unforeseen, the Star Wars universe stood on the threshold of a new era, defined not by conflict alone, but by the enduring capacity for power to coexist with principle.